What up guys, Miguel here from Tech, and this is the world's smallest and lightest ultra-compact camera. So where does it fit in this world filled with ever-growing influencers and creators alike? So like I said before, the RX0 Mark II is the best of both an action camera and a vlogging camera. For the build, you get water resistance of up to 20 meters, it's got a shock resistance rating of 2 meters, and a crush-proof rating of 200 kilograms of force. For specs, the RX0 Mark II is utilizing a 1-inch 15.3 megapixel XMR RS CMOS sensor with a fixed wide-angle lens with a focal length of 24 millimeters and an aperture rating of f4. For ports, the RX0 Mark II has a few. You get a microSD card slot, a 3.5mm audio jack for an external mic, a mini HDMI for an external monitor, and a micro USB port for charging and wired data transfers. Now what makes this different from its predecessor? Well, joking aside, you do get a flip-out screen now on the Mark II. Sony aims to simplify and lighten the vlogging experience, and in my opinion, that's a fair approach. The RX0 Mark II can now shoot in 4K internally with a full pixel readout and no pixel binning. With the initial RX0, you can only record 4K with an external recorder. You can even shoot up to 120 frames per second on 1080p now, so if you love making those slow motion speed ramp edits, the RX0 Mark II's got your back. Speaking of slow motion, the RX0 Mark II can record super slow motion at 960 or 1000 frames per second, depending on your video format. And honestly, it looks pretty good from such a pocketable little thing. That is, of course, if you have enough light for your shot. For battery, the RX0 Mark II utilizes a Sony NP-BJ1 battery. Sony rates it at 35 minutes of continuous 4K video recording, and that doesn't sound too great at all, especially when the GoPro Hero 7 Black is rated at 2 hours. Yeah, you can always buy spares, of course, they aren't that expensive. But of all the action camera features, I really wish this thing could last a bit longer. But when we talk about money now that you've bought this thing for double a GoPro, you kind of don't really want to spend any more money. So yeah, that's disappointing. Now let's get into what's really good about this device. Picture quality. Okay, listen up people, because this is where your money's going. That 1-inch CMOS sensor is superb, which is why the filmmaker in me just kinda geeks out on this thing. It's basically a more film-centric GoPro. You also get a better amount of bokeh on here too, which means your footage will subjectively look more cinematic. Having a bigger sensor allows more light in, meaning this should fare far better than a GoPro in low lighting conditions. Now you might be thinking, what does that mean, Miguel? Are you saying a GoPro's footage doesn't look professional enough for you? No, that isn't what I'm saying. I am a firm believer that the gear should not dictate the quality of your creation. What I am saying is, if I was a creator who primarily shoots on Sony and I'm somebody who likes to color grade and take a lot of different shots from a lot of different angles, so yeah, that's why I would buy this thing. For software, you get the usual Sony camera interface. If you're a Sony guy, you should feel right at home. Although, even with a flip-out screen, maybe you want a better and bigger display, which is why it's great you can make use of the Sony companion app, Imaging Sense Mobile. You can control the RX0 Mark II in full manual and even sync up to 5 of these things to shoot at the same time. One thing I do want to mention is whenever recording in 4K, it becomes impossible to pair up with the app. Now, let's check out some stills. You can take some pretty good photos with this guy and in Sony's RAW format too. Because of that CMOS sensor, photo and video quality is comparable to the Sony RX100 series, and that's a good thing. The RX0 Mark II also comes with electronic in-body stabilization, and for me at least, it does not lack. Although, I do believe they could better fix this in the version to follow. Another thing I truly love about this thing is you get S-Log too. So if all your devices are Sony, then color grading should really be a breeze. When it comes to focusing, I'm disappointed you don't get continuous autofocus on here, which is weird, especially if they're marketing this to vloggers. The autofocus though is very quick and precise with Sony's eye autofocus on board. But yeah, the moment you hit that record button, if your subject is moving a lot in frame, that might be an issue. The best fix for this, I guess, would be to close the aperture enough such that things out of focus aren't that apparent, or to always perfectly match the distance from your subject when shooting. Onboard audio from the RX0 Mark II sounds like this. This is what it sounds like on our lapel. But the RX0 Mark II does come with a 3.5mm audio jack for an external mic. This is what it sounds like with a video mic plugged to it. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So there you go. It actually does sound quite loud, honestly, and it is very much quite usable. Why do I keep saying quite? I don't know. I'm so done with this. Now lastly, before we conclude this video, if you were thinking about purchasing this for vlogging, you might want to consider this VCT SGR1 shooting grip. It's basically a grip that you can pair with the RX0 Mark II via micro USB that doubles as a little tripod. You get some extra buttons on it, namely a zoom rocker, a photo shutter, and a video record button. But in our opinion, it isn't necessary and it lacks. It lacks because they could have doubled this grip as a little power bank, and in our opinion, that would justify purchasing this to also extend that 35-minute 4K recording time to maybe even an hour. Which bridges to why it isn't necessary, because you can basically mount this to anything that uses a 1/4-20 thread, which is standard. Alright, so to conclude this review, the RX0 Mark II is a great ultra compact and light little thing that packs a pretty strong punch for its size. It's priced at 39,999 pesos, which is, yes, double the price of a GoPro, but I do want to remind you guys that this isn't purely an action camera. So to answer this video's thesis, I believe this camera is for the creators who are already in the Sony camera ecosystem and would love to have something of this form factor. Especially if you need a little camera that can take all those unique angles, or if you just want to simply lighten your vlogging rig. So yeah, what do you guys think of the Sony RX0 Mark II? Is it the next vlogging camera for you? Let us know in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to smack that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hit that bell icon so you get notified of our future uploads. Be sure to visit yugatech.com for the latest tech news and reviews. Again, this has been Miguel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!